Dr. Lori Desautels has been an assistant professor at Butler University since 2016, where she teaches both undergraduate and graduate programs in the College of Education. Lori was also an assistant professor at Marian University in Indianapolis for 8 years, where she founded the Educational Neuroscience Symposium that has now reached thousands of educators, and it's in its 10th year. Lori's passion is engaging her students through the social and relational neurosciences as it applies to education by integrating the applied educational neuroscience framework and its learning principles and practices into her casework at Butler. The Applied Educational Neuroscience Certification, created by Lori in 2016, is specifically designed to meet the needs of educators, counselors, clinicians, and administrators who work beside children and adolescents who have and are experiencing adversity and trauma. The certification is now global and has reached hundreds of educators. Lori's articles are published in Edutopia, Brain Bulletin, and Mind, Body, Spirit International magazine. She was also published in the Brain Research Journal for her work in the 5th grade classrooms during her course release position with Washington Township Schools. Lori continues her work co-teaching in the K-12 schools, integrating her applied research into classroom procedures and transitions, preparing the nervous system for learning and felt safety. Lori is the author of 4 books. Her most recent book, Connections Over Compliance, Rewiring Our Perceptions of Discipline, which is a fantastic book, by the way, was released in late 2020. Her new book will be published in January of 2023, entitled Intentional Neuroplasticity, Our Educational Journey Towards Post-Traumatic Growth. Lori has met with well over 100 school districts across the country, in Canada, Costa Rica, Australia, Scotland, England, and Dubai, equating to more than 100,000 educators with much more work to be done. I want to say a quote from her book. It's actually on page 44. That's how much I read that book. I read it twice. If you've ever sat through one of my workshops, I always make this quote at the end. I have learned that caring for another is not a manufactured process or action. It is organic. It is a way of living and breathing each day, hoping for positive results through selfless efforts. This is serving, this is teaching, and we are all disciples. Not disciplinarians, but disciples, meaning teachers. So it is my humble honor and pleasure to introduce Dr. Lori Desautels.
Well, that was way too much of an introduction, but Devlon, thank you. He said, remember, Devlon, did I say it wrong? What is it? See, you said that and I already forgot it. So cortisol is going through my system right now. I am just so honored to sit beside you just for the snapshot over the next, 45, 50 minutes. And I want to thank Rachel for really a couple of years ago. I mean, we met several years ago, but for a couple of years ago, she said, Lori, what do you think about sharing this work? So I loved the introduction, but I want to tell all of you today that I would have nothing to say to you if I were not back in the classroom. So I travel the world speaking to educators, social workers, organizations, but I'm also in the 7th grade classroom 2 days a week. And I want to tell all of you that if you have not been teaching or in a classroom in the last 3 years, I really don't want to hear from you. Because there has never been a harder time in education. Our kids came back to us after this pandemic with a social loss that feels tangible and is still happening. I have never seen such physical and verbal aggression, and I can add to that this year, we have an educational system that is broken right now. And I feel that this pandemic has layered adversities and traumas up on those traumas that have always been there. And when I heard all of you speak, Catherine, I mean, what you shared today is what I'm going to talk about. And I have no words for how your nervous system navigated what you have been able to do. And it's an honor to be in the same room with you. So thank you. So I don't mean to lean to the right. I'll come down this way too. But I am going to skip some slides today because I have way too many, and actually I'll be sharing these tomorrow. Uh-oh, it's not turning. Oh, there it is. So I'm going to share some brand new research, and if you are a parent, an educator, you work with children or adolescents in any capacity, I'm going to share this new research with you because we are missing the mark. It's not about the brain. It is not just about the brain. When you talk about the brain, you're missing it. The social and emotional organ is our nervous system. And what we're learning now, and as I listen to the stories today with the panel, at 11 o'clock, I just kept envisioning your nervous systems. Because the nervous system is the body and the brain in constant communication, and that's what my new book is about. And we talk about that in Connections Over Compliance, but here's the coolest thing. Your body knows the way home. And I'm tired of pathologizing and classifying and giving rulings to these disorders. Children who have been labeled as emotionally disturbed or behavior disordered or emotionally impaired or other health impaired or, significant anxiety. I want to say to all of us today, your nervous system is constantly talking to you, and it knows how to help when you're listening. And this is what we are teaching 4- and 5-year-olds across the country right now. Children at St. Mary's know about their nervous system. So let's just begin with this, because both adult and youth are shaping one another's experience. And I was in Kansas City, and I just said this out loud, this quote: when I follow my agenda, I get tangled up in the conflict. But when I follow the child, I learn deeply. It's not about me. It's just not about me. And as a mom, as an educator, when I am listening deeply and I am watching the way those children posture and gesture and the way that their face looks and the way they move their bodies, I am learning about how they sense and feel the world around them. So I shared this in Houston at the trauma conference, and I love this quote. The mind cries out, explains, protests, but inside me a voice rises and shouts, let us hear the heart and the body. What we misunderstand today is that we have a belly brain, we have a heart brain, and we have a skull brain. And you all know this because when you are going through a hard time, how many of you have digestive issues? I mean, we digest not only food, we digest our experiences. And so we know that in that bi-directional highway, trauma lands in the body. It's not about the brain. Trauma lands in the body. It lands in pieces, fragments. And that's why we see our kids get triggered or activated, because these are implicit, below conscious memories. And so I can be teaching in a classroom and a red van drives across the parking lot and a kid could jump out of their seat and say, fuck you. And I'm thinking, what just happened? I mean, everything's going fine. What just happened? But this child is holding sensory information with no narrative. And I'm sorry for my language if I offended anyone. I don't mean to do that. I've been with 7th grade for 2 years, so that's how we talk. So I want to talk to you. I love this quote. My daughter Reagan sent this to me, and Angela Davis says, radical simply means grasping things at the root. And I just want us to think about that today in our communities. Are we reaching under the behavior? Are we reaching under the label, under the classification, under the diagnoses? Because all behavior is not only communication, behavior is only an indicator. It's only a signal that the nervous system is struggling. And that nervous system is living in a stress response cycle. So when I think about making radical imaginable, it's overwhelming, but it also has two ends of the same stick. It begins with me, but it also begins with my actions, my internal reflection, and then my actions within my school, within my grade level, within my community, within my work, period. I will be skipping some of these slides, but I have to show you this. We, as adults, traditionally think of discipline in a reactionary way. And adults really focus, whether you're parenting, caregiving, teach, it doesn't matter, but we focus on the consequences. And when you think about what is a consequence, I want you to think about this for a minute. A consequence is only an experience. So I want to ask you a question. Instead of saying, what consequences does this child need for showing up late in my class every day, for not coming to class, why can't I ask, what experiences does this student need so they want to be in my class? What experiences can I create that build felt safety? Because we don't live well, we don't learn well, we don't teach well, we don't parent well unless all of us are feeling felt and safe, emotionally safe. And so when we think about this work, the radical change that Angela Davis talks about is getting out in front of the behavior. It's really creating a culture where a child and an adolescent feels heard and seen and felt and respected. And I love, before she passed away, I love this quote, and I just went blank on her name, but she said, we work for people we like. You know, and we respect people who respect us. So when I think about this, and I'm going to talk a lot about this tomorrow because with educators and therapists, whoever's with me, the community, but it's literally in our procedures, in our routines, in our transitions, and in the way that we hold predictability, because the nervous system needs predictability. We have to have structure. We have to have routines. So our neurobiology is about connection. It's not a warm, fuzzy extra. Attachment builds the nervous system. And that's what we're teaching our 7th graders. And when they come in to advisory, it was so rough these last 2 years that we are now pulling out board games, Battleship, Connect 4, cards, so that and literally we can go 42 minutes and 37 seconds without a Chromebook being open or a phone being out. And that's miraculous, let me tell you. So I found these on the plane yesterday. I was just thinking that what we maybe do understand, but I want you to embody it, is that human beings are contagious. You know, our emotions are contagious. And there are regions in the brain and in the nervous system that produce that contagiousness. And we do hold a sphere of influence. It's not just 6 degrees anymore, it's 3 degrees. And I love this definition of diversity as I think about neuroscience. Diversity is so often misunderstood as it is a point in respect in which things differ. And we, as adults, right now are living so angry, and we're living fast. And whether you're at Publix or Speedway or on the highway, people are angry right now. And people are in survival. And our kids are picking up on the labels and the dissension and the racism in our world because we are emotionally contagious creatures. I didn't even know. Uh-oh, it's moving on its own. All right, so I'm gonna, that was a new slide. I just made it 6 o'clock this morning. So we are angry and fast. So I'm gonna skip some of these. I'm gonna talk about these tomorrow. It's not moving again. Are you helping me? Okay, I have to show this one. This is my co-teacher, Crystal. I bring her with me everywhere I go. This is advisory. And we don't begin class, we don't end class, and this is what I'm working with educators in districts all across the world without checking in with our nervous systems. Our kids know what their bodies and their nervous systems are saying to them, and they are learning what practices, what resources can feel regulating, can feel centering and grounded. And I'm trying to move away from the word calm because that's not realistic. And Crystal is telling everyone, I don't have time to, I'm gonna play this video tomorrow, but it's on my TikTok and it's on my Instagram. You gotta see it. She's telling them that if she doesn't spend a few minutes a day working out, she just has to let those crazies out. And our kids, like, we are authentic with them. We are telling them what we need. And let me just share why this conference is so important and what I'm sharing with you is so important. If you cannot get to this cortex right here behind your eyebrows, if you can't access this, you don't do life well. You don't do school well. You're living in a survival state. And when we talk about incarcerating children, this is a prefrontal cortex that probably will not fully develop until mid-late 20s, 30s. And this is where those executive functions live, where you're logical, where you could use reason, where you've got attention and you can emotionally regulate. The science is burgeoning, and yet our laws are just falling so short. And it was just heartbreaking to hear the stories from the panel today. So let's see. These are the 4 beautiful pillars of the applied educational neuroscience framework. And I'm going to go through these really briefly. All of these prints are on my website. And 95% of what's on my website is free to you. And you can make posters, you can make templates, you can print everything out. I have resources for everybody on my website. It'll overwhelm your nervous system. There's so much. So the very first pillar is the adult nervous system, and I'm going to share this, and some of you may just kind of feel a little prickly when I say this, and that's okay. Behavior management is not about kids. Behavior management is about adults. And adults drive all of the behaviors that we are seeing. And that is a significant part of the school to prison pipeline. And what we are seeing is the most dysregulated adults are literally escalating and re-traumatizing kids in our schools over and over and over again. And there is a significant correlation of the adults that are carrying in pain. This is, we are no different than our kids. The adults that are carrying in pain are creating more pain for those students. And so I don't have enough time to get into that right now, but we'll talk about it tomorrow. Co-regulation is our biological priority. We are social creatures. We don't survive without each other. And this is at the heart of connections over compliance. This is where we shift the lens for disciplining. It is my responsibility and it's my ability to share my safe, emotionally available nervous system with a child. And then we can talk. And then we can reason. And then we can consequence, kind of. And then there are touch points. And those are those micro moments of connection, and most of the time they're nonverbal. The way you tilt your head, the way your face announces itself to children and youth, the way you posture, the way you gesture, those are all touch points that can be so co-regulating for a child or an adolescent, or they can be really, really escalating. How many of you can, raise your hand, how many of you can name at least one or two people in your life that just by being in their presence, you can take a deep breath? Just by, they don't have to open their mouths. How many of you can name one or two adults that when you look at them, you can barely get your breath. They don't even have to open their mouths. And you're never disappointed. The fourth pillar of this work is the language of the nervous system. And that sounds really just so like too many words, but here's what it is. Our kids feel empowered and they feel relieved to know I'm not a bad kid and there's nothing wrong with me. My brain and my body are and have always been trying to protect me. We have a nervous system for one main purpose. There are three reasons, but the main purpose is what? Anybody want to shout it out? Survival. Survival. And so when we feel threatened, when we feel unsafe or the environment feels unfamiliar, all that oxygenated glucose blood flow leaves the prefrontal cortex and it starts activating the midbrain and the lower brain regions. How many of you have heard of the amygdala? Now I'm oversimplifying today and I'm being very schematic because the brain does not work in regions or sections, and we're on inch 2 of a 10-mile journey. A 100-mile journey. But that amygdala is your smoke detector. And I'm going to show you some pictures of that. And when it is firing, if you make 2 ovals right now and put them above your ears. So go ahead and do that. And we can wave at each other. So when you've got this amygdala area really, really, really firing, what happens to this prefrontal cortex? It goes offline. It goes offline. And if it goes offline long enough, we begin to label kids as academically, cognitively impaired. These are brilliant children who are 2 and 3 years behind. They're in life skill classes. They're in mildly cognitively impaired classes. They're in classes where we label them as emotionally disturbed or behavior disordered. These are brilliant children. And because of the accumulating traumas and adversities in their lives, they can't even get here. They cannot get here. And they live and they spin in these mid and lower brain regions. So when we give our children and our staff the language of the nervous system, it makes a big difference. So this is my team at Belzer Middle School. And this morning, I told Rachel I couldn't get here this morning because last week, Belzer is in Lawrence Township in Indianapolis, Indiana. Lawrence Township has about 16,000 students. We have 1,195 7th and 8th graders at Belzer. And this is a very diverse school. We are really challenged right now with our discipline data in Lawrence Township because we are over-identifying and disproportionately punishing our black and brown and our special education students. And that's happening across the world. But in the middle schools, for us in Lawrence, there's a significant disproportionality in 7th and 8th and freshman year. And that is the time when the nervous system goes through its second greatest time of development. And we're not taught that as educators or parents. We are not taught that at 9 or 10 years old, your nervous system starts going through another huge plasticity process where the brain is preparing to die to childhood and to be born into young adulthood. It's preparing for efficiency and it's preparing for specialization. And so whatever you keep doing or learning or behaving, whatever you're doing with patterned repetition, you get really good at it. How many of you are worriers? I'm just going to give you an example. I am. I worry. It's ridiculous. My girls will say to me, Mom, you didn't worry about what is wrong with you. And the reason I worry is I practice it. I'm telling you, I have circuits in the nervous system for worrying because I do a lot of it. So let's just create neuroplasticity right now. So neuroplasticity is the nervous system's ability to change structurally and functionally with every experience. And so we're going to be intentional right now. So here we go. Make a peace sign and make an okay sign. Hold it up. Everyone at your table can see you. Now, as quickly as you can, switch and go back and forth, fast. Show So you should be struggling. You should be, try one hand, go slow. So we've done these, where, what is it? You rub your belly, pat your head. So we know those bi-directional, those are kind of fun and challenging, but literally whether you are, you're changing a skill, a behavior, a feeling, a thought. We all have these, what we call belief systems, right? We all carry in our beliefs. Well, what is a belief? A belief are thoughts you've practiced for a long time. It's a bundle of thoughts you've practiced for a long time. And so when we think about it, we are not only social creatures, but we have a nervous system that is experience dependent. And we are who we are from so many facets. And it begins with our neurobiology, our lived embodied experiences, our generational trauma, our historical trauma, our racialized trauma, our institutional trauma. It just comes in, and those things, and they begin to form our nervous system states. So practice this and you'll get really good at that. And so this is how we really share every day. This is from the new book, and this is a great way to define the power of relationships, that they are our natural habitat. We'll go ahead and switch. I don't know why it's not. So these are my 3 now adult children, and I'm a different mom today. I would not, and I have to say to you, I didn't parent well in many moments because I didn't know what I know today. I jumped into the power struggle. I jumped into the conflict. And over this past year, I've been taking another certification with Dr. Albert Wong at JFK University. And this is his quote: "Trauma gets stored in the body, but it shows up in our relationships." So I have to tell you, I just became a grandmother. Yep, 3 weeks ago. And so when I learned I was coming here today and tomorrow, when I made my flight, I said to my husband, I bet you I could turn in that rental car in Valdosta, Georgia, because it's only 3.5 hours from here. So when I'm done tomorrow, I'm driving to Valdosta, Georgia to be with that sweet baby boy. So, and I think that I feel so blessed because I have a chance to really explore co-regulation through a new lens. And to really know, and this is, I don't get this research, but this blows my mind. In the first year of life, Neurons in the brain are wiring up at 1 million synapses per second. Now, I mean, think about that. And if we are experience-dependent human beings, the first 1,000 days of life matter. So you may not remember birth to 3 years old, but your body holds on to that. Your body remembers. And I don't want our children and youth to grow up and become 40 and 50 and 60 years old because they have not been aware or acknowledged the trauma that has plasticity, that can repair, and we can make a shift, a change. So I want to share in the brief few minutes that I have left, we all as educators, we love strategies, we love practices. So I'm going to give you the greatest practice you can take back into your home, into your organization, and into your school. And that is, my body is the intervention. I've got to do my own work. If I am not attending and tuning in to my own nervous system, I cannot sit beside another child and try to guide him, her, or they. A trauma-responsive school deeply understands that the awareness to be present in ourselves is the greatest intervention we can share with our students. Settled adults have settled students. We need to do our own work. And so, as we think about this quote and what I'm talking about today, I'm going to say this very, very clearly. I am not asking you to be regulated all the time. That's not realistic. I hope everyone today will leave this afternoon thinking and being aware of when you are dysregulated. What happens in your body? You know, what do you sense? Because we are sensing and feeling creatures who think. We're not thinking creatures who feel. And it begins with my awareness and the acknowledgement of when I don't have the words, nor should I say a word, because whatever's going to come out of my mouth is not going to be helpful or hopeful. And I've got to really tune in to where I am in my nervous system. So I'm going to skip some of these now because, can you help me? It's still sticking.
And we're going to have time for a Q&A, Lori. Do you want to do that now?
Okay.
Until about 1:30?
Yes, can I do two more slides?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
No.
Damn it, I knew I wouldn't get to like this one. Okay, so I just want to say these are circuits in the nervous system. Feeling safe is all about the brainstem, and feeling connected is all about the midbrain areas where the amygdala lives. So these are circuits, and I'll just do one or two more. Let me see which one's next. This is really, okay, so this is really oversimplified, but this is the last one I'll share. And Rachel, thank you. So on the left is a nervous system that is ready to learn. This is a nervous system that can reason, that can be logical. These are my kids in 7th grade who are ready to take that test. These are teachers, or these are parents who can stay compassionately detached. Over on the right, and you can see the cortex is sending projections all the way throughout the brain. On the right is what we misunderstand. On the right, do you see the areas in red? That is the limbic system. It's where the amygdala lives, the hippocampus lives. That is inflammation. That is inflammation. We are punishing inflammation in our schools. We are incarcerating inflammation. When we have physical injuries and we can see the redness, the hotness, the swollenness, the broken bones, when we see the physical injuries, we don't punish, we don't incarcerate, We work to heal the illness. We work to heal the injury. But when you are living in those mid and lower brain regions, your body and brain are producing excessive amounts of cortisol and adrenaline. And you cannot get here. You cannot get here. And so this work, though, is hopeful because we are working with parents and educators and social workers and therapists to get here. So I'll end with that. And I just want to say, your breath is your superpower. Movement is your superpower. Listening to your nervous system is your superpower, with pressure, with touch, with heat, with ice, with coolness, but always breath and movement and listening to your sensory systems. So we'll do questions and answers, and then I'll give you my contact information.
Let's give Lori a round of applause. We have our first question right here with Stephanie.
Thank you so much. That was amazing. I have like 1,000 questions, but just going to ask one quick one. And I'm working with the City of Orlando on a program that's providing mobile response versus police for people who are dealing with mental health crises. I'm also a mom. That's like the most important title. So my question for you is, I have a 9th grader. I'm around a lot of teenage girls. What is your perspective on the addition of our menstrual cycles and how that impacts the ability to regulate, and how do we better support, because that conversation is not happening right now?
It's such a great question. And Donna Jackson, who wrote a book, you must read this, called Girls on the Brink, talks about how the brain development of our young girls is not aligning with puberty. So our girls are hitting puberty before they have the neuroanatomy to deal with it. And social media adds a whole new layer. To be a mom right now of a middle or high school student, I mean, it's so challenging. But I love your question. And so we have to give our girls that information. Like, I want my Sarahs and my Reagans and my own children, and we're talking to our 7th grade girls about that. You know, it's like all of a sudden you just made this huge switch in puberty because it's happening earlier, but yet your nervous system hasn't caught up. Yeah, that's a great question.
Much.
Yeah.
Question, just raise your hand so we can see you.
Hi, I'm an educator as well, and I noticed coming back from the pandemic, it's funny that the school districts thought that it was okay, and it's understandable, but it was almost as if nobody missed anything. So they come back and the kids are already stressed from whatever they went through at home. I was at a Title I school. They're already stressed at whatever was going on at home while they were home, trying to keep up with whatever. And when school started back up, it was like, okay, you were in 4th grade last year, you're going straight to 5th grade standards this year, as if you're ready for those. So I feel that there was even more stress from that.
Absolutely.
It led to a lot of behaviors and a lot of things. And I feel like we really needed to work harder to help the kids feel safe.
What's your question?
My question really is, how can, bigger picture groups understand maybe they just need a little more intervention and a little more help to catch up, not only socially but educationally as well. I mean,
that's so true, and I'm glad for that, and I couldn't agree with you more. And I do want to say this very clearly, that this work begins with the adults. It's like when I go into schools and districts, like for a year, we work with the adults because we had these expectations when our kids returned, that we would just go back to, I don't even want to say normal, but I mean, as if nothing happened. And so the loss, the social and emotional loss is palatable. And to your point, I want to say this to everybody. I don't know I'm sure Florida is similar to Indiana, But we have, social emotional learning has been attacked across this nation. It's been misunderstood. It's been conflated with critical race theory. I don't even use the term social and emotional learning. Right now, we call it the neuroeducation of the nervous system, because we're missing the mark. And so many schools and districts are purchasing programs, expensive programs, and we implement SEL for 30 minutes from 10 to 10:30, and then we're done. And that's crazy. I mean, this is about me all day long. It's about our bus drivers. It's about our communities. It's about our IAs. It's about our cafeteria staff, our custodial staff. We all have these amazing touch points with our children. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. I just want to know how you went about implementing some of this learning into the schools. Who do you contact? Who did you go to? Because as outside organizations, we're trying to get to the schools so we can get to the youth that needs it, so that we can link to the parents, and it's like a collaboration. But how did you, I know you are inside the school, but if I'm not in the school, how do I get in touch with those that allow us to come in, to allow us to do the work that you say?
Well, that is a great question. And I'm in the schools because I asked to go back in the classroom. So I'm going to say something that you may not want to hear. But I think if you're really serious about these programs or the practices that you want to take into the schools, I would encourage you to volunteer in a school for a day a week. I would encourage you to go into a classroom and observe and co-teach maybe. And I don't know what that would look like, but I think, I think the work happens when we're walking the walk. And being a college professor, it blows my mind that we are not creating a culture where all of us who work with children are not required to be in the classrooms. I mean, it should not be the one-off. Yeah.
Another question. Heather down there has a question. Let's get the microphone to her, and then after that, right here in the middle.
That's loud. As someone who works in the schools and tries to do some education with people, I think one of the challenges that a lot of us at this table face are people who just don't believe a lot of this or don't believe in it. What is your advice to getting that buy-in from the people who really need to hear it and really need to learn about this?
Well, it's a great question, and so the resistance is for real, isn't it? And so the resistance is not coming from students, it's coming from the adults everywhere I go. And so, we know that traditional discipline works the best with the kids who need it the least, and it works the least with the kids who need it the most. And so we are filling them up with, this is 3 parts of this answer. Number 1, look at your discipline data. Have them explore their discipline data. Your data tells the story of how that child or adolescent is doing. And the truth is that the kids in our schools across this country who were struggling in August are struggling today on May 11th. It's the same kids. We don't have a whole new group of kids in our office with kickouts, office referrals. I mean, these are the kids that are struggling, so we're doing the same thing. The second thing, I would build relationships with those resistors. That's hard. But I would build connection as you share snippets of the science that's palatable. And then take them to my website. I'm serious. Yeah, or the YouTube channel. Yep.
Hi, Lori. Thank you. I am honored to be in your presence. I've been watching and following you for a while.
Thank you.
Was a school counselor, now an administrator. Been preaching a lot of the brain science at the district level for many, many years. I sit at a table full of them. But my question is kind of piggybacking to your question. Buy-in is needed. As an administrator and administrators in the room, we know data drives many decisions. So can you speak to us about maybe some of the data or the outcome data that you have used over time at schools so that I can take back to my wonderful leaders and kind of advocate more about that?
So I love the question, and data feels overwhelming, but it really does inform where we are, where we need to go. And it also gives us a look at the gaps. So here's what I'm going to say about that. What we're seeing this year is that the highest number of referrals are coming from the same classrooms. Anybody seeing that? These are, and so the correlation is there. So, and it's not about blaming and shaming. But as a parent, as an educator, as a social worker, as an administrator, as a counselor, we've got to have these really challenging conversations. And there's a slide that says, and I'm going to share it tomorrow, but the slide is, are these behavioral issues student challenges or are they staff challenges? And so collect the perceptual data. I have surveys I can share with you. I'll share them. We have a student survey from 7th grade up through seniors. I haven't done the elementary one. And we have a staff survey. So perceptual data is a part of our data gathering. Surveys, and then really having a hard look at the discipline data and the correlations. Where are they coming from? We even say what days of the week, what times of the day, who, are like which adults are really struggling. And pain begets pain. And we're seeing that inside the disparities and the discipline protocols. And we really, I always share my own, I would always share with my roughest staff members that this is a process. And when you hear it's all about you, that feels scary. That feels overwhelming. And boy, you do get, what's the word we use in our house? You just get super defensive, super edgy with that, because it feels like a lot. Is that helpful? So discipline, perceptual data, tracking, questionnaires, and really having those PLCs or department or administrative, really holding the questions. Yeah.
So do you find that those children that are stressed from other external stimuli like the economic pressures that somebody else brought up, are those things signaled by this education, this awareness as to how out of sorts their nervous system is, and just maybe share on, does that open up that path to other issues beyond like developmental trauma and things like that?
So it's and we didn't even get a chance so you're talking about the accumulating adversities. So the ACE, how many of you are familiar with the ACEs? So adverse childhood experiences is now becoming globally well known, but the original ACEs that were identified in the 90s, there were a list of 10: sexual abuse, physical abuse, neglect, living in poverty, the divorce of a parent, growing up with somebody in your family who has struggled with addiction or alcoholism. So, I mean, there are the 10 original, but Dr. Wendy Ellis has also studied the adverse community environments. So those, to your question, also looking at the adversities of the pandemic and looking at the adversities of really social media right now is another. There's, we know that Donna Jackson says that the lost years are between 7 and 13. So can I just say, this is what Dr. Nick Abel, my grad chair, shared at our Butler graduation. He looked at our graduates and he said, never in the history of this time have we seen anxiety and depression in children and youth like we're seeing it. We've never seen these numbers. I mean, and so everyone's like, so we need each other. We need each other. And so if you're feeling overwhelmed, if your school is feeling overwhelmed, I want to validate that. I want to validate that before we start using interventions. I want to say this is new territory for us all. Is that helpful? It's informing and in chunk. Yeah, informing in chunks. It's sharing the science, and then it's in helping our adults to understand that all behavior is about the nervous system. That's it. All behavior is about our physiological systems. When we are stressed, it impacts our digestive system, our cardiovascular system, our perceptual system. Every system in the body becomes inflamed. And we thought the brain was immune to inflammation until a few decades ago. Yeah.
Okay, we have maybe time for 2 more. Oh.
I just want to build again on the question of, we all are being convinced and have been convinced for a long time. And how do we share? How do we convince the people who are in the root of our model of the tree and in the society? And and respecting where they're coming from, because they're coming from fear. And they're going back to what they've always known and experienced. Right. And so I have to respect that. I was driving home last Thursday listening to an interview from one of our Tallahassee legislators who said that teachers are only conduits for what the legislatures determine is what the children should know. And this is the policy, the environment, this is the culture, the root that is feeding this tree that we're trying to fight. How do we take care of ourselves? Take care of the silo that we're in, because we were talking about the collective impact, when we're in a culture that we're constantly being bombarded by what she is saying is a culture that does not believe that any of this is true.
Yeah.
How do we deal with that?
So I really appreciate the question, and this is going to sound trite. I hope it doesn't. But I want to say, because I believe this with all my heart, and I'm not telling you this is what I'm having to do this year. I am truly having to step back and away and to be selfish enough to protect my thoughts and my feelings and my sensations so that I have enough left. And not enough left, that I have an abundance to give to those children and youth and those educators I sit beside. And I am telling you, the contagiousness of our nervous systems matters. And we have contagiousness for positivity and for healing and repair. Growth, we move on this continuum from states of protection to states of growth. And when I can find my awareness of how I'm sensing my experiences, my kids pick up on that every single time. So that I'm hopeful. I mean, it feels overwhelming, but if we all took that time and awareness to care for ourselves, and I wish I could just share all the ways. On my website will just share, even it's literally putting a mitt in your mouth, giving yourself a hand massage, chewing a piece of gum, splashing cold water on your face, activating the parasympathetic nervous system. It's a 5-minute walk. I mean, these are the things. It's not big. It's grabbing a chocolate. It's sucking yogurt out of a yogurt container with a straw, because that activates. If we do those things every day, we've got so much to give our children and youth.
Hi, thank you so much for everything you've shared, and we've heard from a lot of our educators, which thank you for your service. God bless you. As a non-educator, but someone who deeply cares about this and wants to be of the most use and support, how do we as non-educators come alongside our educators to support them doing this very important work and support them supporting our kids?
Well, first of all, I love that. And I think your question is your answer. I mean, and I love what you just said. How do we support our educators? You're a touch point for the adults who sit beside children and youth. And so again, when you're checking in with your nervous system, and I think another gift that we can give educators, it's really hard to reframe a lot when you're in the middle of it. I love when Crystal will reframe something for me that that it was just a shitty afternoon, and she'll say, but Lori, this is what I saw. And so there on my website, we did this reframing. It's like just sitting beside, first of all, you have to validate. That's the most important thing. You have to be, when the greatest gift we can give each other is to know that they have been seen, heard, and felt. And once we feel safe enough to share, then we can help them reframe. Yeah, validation and reframing. They're not fixes, but it's so healing.
Let's give this woman a round of applause.
Oh, thank you.
You know, when I met Lori, and it was about 10 years ago, it was a long time ago, we were invited to sit on a panel together, and it was a long time ago, but I've watched your work evolve and grow, and you become one of these national experts that's speaking at the Brain Conference in different areas, really leading out, and I respect you so much, and I appreciate that you're here with us. Many people are going to be coming and getting a day-long workshop with you tomorrow, and when we registered this thing, I thought, well, if we have 50 people come up for the day long, it'll be great. Oh my gosh, if you're coming tomorrow, sardines in a room. There are over 100 of us signed up for tomorrow. Exactly. Don't you feel the hope of that? Because if we can practice this and then bring it to our leaders, our administrators, and hopefully some of the administrators and people with leadership capacity will be in the room, I'm hopeful too, Lori, and I just appreciate you and what you've done to stay the course and keep writing book after book and keep bringing us, because I've been saying it's about the brain. It's about the nervous system.
Thank you. And I have the new book to give away, so I need to update my bio, but the new book is out. There it is on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, and it's on my website, and all the illustrations, I cannot believe. So they've made prints of these. So my daughter Reagan and her fiance Alexis, they live in Mexico, they did all of the illustrations. So the book is QR coded. So you can QR code and then go to the illustrations, but thank you. And so guess who I'm giving the book to? Really? So I have to, here it is. It's Kevlon.
Kevlon loves Lori's book, and he carries it around and he quotes it. He loves it.
But I might have written in it. I don't know. There's something in there. I don't know. Because I was bringing it. It was in my backpack just to study and, just to have it with me. But anyway, it's yours. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you all, and connect with me on social media, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram, and then I'll see some of you hopefully tomorrow.
We'll see you tomorrow.